Let me tell you something I have learned about people. People will not always tell you the truth about themselves. And I'm not talking about lying. I'm talking about something much more interesting. People will tell you what they want you to know, and their behavior quietly tells you what you should actually know. And once you understand this difference, you will start looking at people differently. And there is one more thing, people will tell you exactly what you want to hear and still show you something that's completely different. Okay, and that's where you need to stop listening only to the words. People communicate in more ways than just sentences. We are so busy listening to the words that we completely ignore the paralinguistics. We completely ignore the behavior, the pattern. Okay, nobody is gonna sit across you and confess their intentions to you. Okay, do you really think somebody is gonna say, hello, just so you know, I'm here to waste your time? Or hello, these are my intentions with you and this is who I am? Like, people are not gonna say it, right? And definitely they are not gonna hand you a 5-page document titled everything you should know about me before you trust me. Wouldn't that be convenient though? But life doesn't work like that. People reveal themselves in pieces. Okay, you get the cues. Okay, a reaction here, a comment there, a sudden change in their tone. And maybe you did notice somebody getting defensive over a perfectly normal question. And somebody, like, you will be seeing a completely different personality when they don't get what they want. Okay, so all these little pieces of information actually forms a picture. Okay, that's why you need to pay attention to the paralinguistics. Okay, behavior and pattern, because once you start paying attention to the paralinguistics, behavior and pattern, you will be able to make a better decision for yourself. So let's start with our main topic, the conversation people doesn't want to have. I noticed something. People are not afraid of conflict, they are afraid of clarity. Why? Because clarity changes everything. And this reminded me of something. Let me give you an example. I remember speaking to someone few years ago, and there was a particular thing I had a clear boundary around. And I will not say what that particular thing was because that's not actually the point. The point is the reaction of this person. I simply said, this person, this is something I don't like and I don't want it in my life. I was not attacking them. I was not telling them how they should live. I was not standing there handing out a rule book. Okay. I simply communicated my standard. That's it. And suddenly, this person became defensive and started explaining me how my boundary was unreasonable, why I'm making a big deal of it, and why I'm thinking it in a wrong way. And I'm sitting there thinking, why are we debating about a boundary that belongs to me? I said you what works for me. I'm not asking you to adopt it. But, anyways, I explained myself, I provided context, I explained why it mattered to me. I thought the communication was quite straightforward. Okay, we talked, it was done. Fast forward, few weeks later, this person brought up the same subject again. And this time, and instead of telling me that I understand your boundary, this person started to frame me as a problem for having this boundary in first place. Okay, so basically they were trying to tell me why I should not even have this conversation with them because it is a normal thing, what we call an expected thing. Okay, so they didn't even want me to have this conversation with them. And you know what I think was really happening there? This person didn't want the boundary to be clearly established. Why? Because a clear boundary comes with accountability. Okay, once you set somebody where you stand, going forward, they can't turn around you and say, okay, I never knew that. Okay, I thought it never mattered to you, or it was not clear to me. All these excuses disappear. So that's the reason you see many people try to debate a boundary instead of respecting it. Okay, they will try to make you believe that, okay, this boundary was unnecessary, you are the problem for having it. They will try to picture you as a problem. Okay, because they are trying to leave an escape route for themselves going forward. And eventually, if they step the line, they say that, okay, but it was not communicated correctly to me, it was not clear to me. And suddenly the responsibility has been shifted from their behavior to your communication. And this is a convenient little game. Okay, because now you are defending about whether you have communicated correctly, clearly, or not, instead of them answering what they choose to do. And that's why I pay attention when people get uncomfortable with clearly stated boundary. Okay, because sometimes they are not confused, they are negotiating for future deniability. A person who genuinely respects you can disagree with your boundary. but still they can understand the information. Okay, but somebody who is looking for loopholes will try to argue it. And there is one more thing, they will try to test you. Okay, they will wait until you get tired of defending your boundary and suddenly you lower your standard. And that's why hard conversation was necessary in my situation, because I didn't had to wait for months, sometimes years as well, for someone to say that okay, I never knew it, it was not clear to me, because I have clearly stated it. Now the information is on the table. What this person did with this information clearly gave me what I wanted to know. Okay, and that's the beauty of having hard conversation. Hard conversation is not to win, is it's not to make somebody agree with you, it's not to control the response of other person, it's just to get the information. And there is one more thing I would like to mention is that sometimes it's you who is avoiding a difficult conversation, because deep down you know that this honest conversation is gonna destroy the story you have been telling yourself. And you believe that if I don't ask, I can keep hoping, wondering, right? And something, the clarity has a way to destroy the delusions. Okay, that's the reason people don't want to have a difficult conversation. Once you have an honest conversation with somebody, the excuses disappear, right? And the guessing game ends. The mixed signals become way more harder to explain. Now everybody has to deal with the reality instead of the story they have been telling themselves. So what they do now? That's uncomfortable, right? So what they do, they avoid the conversation. Before you have an honest conversation, just ask yourself, what is the truth I want to say? And can I say it without being disrespectful? Can I say it without turning it into an attack? Can I saying it without controlling the response of other person? Because that's emotional maturity. Okay, you can control honesty, you can control being respectful, but you can't control if somebody agrees to whatever you said. One of the biggest misconception about boundaries is that if I say no, people leave. Maybe, but just ask yourself, why would somebody leave just because you ask them to treat you with respect? Okay, healthy relationships don't fall apart because of healthy boundaries. Unhealthy dynamics too. A boundary doesn't say I don't care about you, it says I care about myself too. And there is a huge difference. Think of boundaries like walls of home, right? The walls are not there to keep the love out. Okay, walls are present to create safety inside. So without walls, there is no home. So without boundaries, there is no peace. And there is one more thing you need to understand is that some people don't necessarily violate your boundaries. Okay, they will question you for having them. Boundary doesn't become unreasonable just because someone else finds it inconvenient. Okay, you don't need panel of judges to approve your boundaries or non-negotiables. You don't need 10 people to say, okay, we approve your boundary and now it's official. Okay, you don't need that. And also keep one thing in mind, a person who is pissed off for you having boundaries was actually the one who was benefiting from you not having one. You know what you're comfortable with, and the other person is perfectly entitled to disagree. That's life, because people have different values, different preferences, and different standard. You can disagree with someone's boundary without having to dismantle it. Let's move to the next topic, the power of not reacting. Let me tell you about a day where someone tried to ruin my focus. So I had an important day. I had something I needed to accomplish. I had list in my head. There were things which I need to complete, and I was so focused on my work on that day that I was completely logged in. Okay, and there was a person who knew exactly how this day was important to me, and instead of giving me space, they tried to do these little things to get into my skin, right? Those little comments takes to distract. So basically they were trying to get emotional reaction out of me. And here is what made it interesting. I realized what this person was trying to do, and I had a choice. I could engage, I could ask, I could argue, I could defend myself, I could let this person occupy my mind for the rest of the day. You know what, I could have destroyed this person. Okay, or I could focus on what was important, what I needed to complete on that day. Okay, so what I did, I went back to what was important and I completed my work. I completed it successfully, it was done. You know what, this person didn't get to change the outcome of my day. This person didn't get the chance to take away my focus. Okay, this person didn't get the chance to decide my mood for the day. Okay. And this person didn't get the chance to be the main character of a day that had nothing to do with them. After a few days, this person got back and apologized. To be honest, I was not even waiting for apology. I was not even waiting for this person to feel guilty. Okay. Because I was able to clearly see what they were trying to do. And guess what? Cut the cord and never look back. That's it. So, this experience taught me something incredibly important, that sometimes real power is not reacting. We often think that power is being louder, being intimidated, okay, getting the last word, or making someone feel regret. But honestly, sometimes real power is not participating in nonsense. Okay, so based on example, what was this person trying to get out of me? An emotional reaction, my focus, my energy, but they got nothing, right? And one more thing you need to understand is that sometimes someone doesn't need to control your entire life to manipulate a certain situation. Okay, they just need to control your next reaction. If they can make you angry, they have changed your behavior. If they can make you anxious or desperate to explain something, they have changed your behavior. Okay, and you're no longer deciding for yourself, you're just reacting to what they are trying to make you feel. Okay, so there is a difference. You don't have to sit and fight every buffoon. You don't have to respond to everything. That's what I want you to understand. And the last thing I want to mention is that manipulators rely on urgency. Okay? If somebody wants your reaction, they will create this urgency. You best believe that urgency will let you skip your own judgment. Instead of asking what I want to do, you start asking yourself, what do I do to control this situation? Okay? Both are completely different questions. Okay, that's the reason I don't believe in every urgent situation deserves an urgent response, because somebody else's emotional urgency doesn't automatically become your emergency. Their emergency is theirs. You don't have to borrow it. You take time and you make a better judgment for yourself. So at last, I would like to conclude by saying that just pause and pay attention. Okay, observe, because these things will help you to take a better decision for yourself. And also just make sure that your boundaries and your non-negotiables are not based on what is convenient for others. Okay, um you need to have them by yourself. Okay, don't need anybody to give you approval to have them in first place. And don't be afraid to have difficult conversation or hard conversation with anybody, because you need clarity in life. Okay guys, that's all for today. See you all in next video.